And today I'll be joined by Dr. Bernard Okoboy, who is a member of parliament for Lejokuku. But, we have in the studio legal practitioner Abraham Amalaba. And good morning to you, Abraham.
Good morning.
Okay. Now, there are a number of things.
Cost of living is high. Petrol prices have shot up.
Oh.
And the trotro drivers are threatening to increase fares.
Well, we'll talk about fuel prices because I thought maybe that was not a big issue. Maybe.
Well, it is. It affects all spectrum of life. The market woman, the food will be increased. And so when petrol prices go up, definitely fares will go up, foodstuffs will go up, and that is how it has a rippling effect. So we are in difficult times. We have to brace ourselves.
Have we been given an explanation why we have the prices high? Because already I know that there's one institution, the Institute of Energy Security, had earlier predicted there will be a 7% increment in fuel. And we know the current figures have not been too good. Well,
I'm told that because of Hurricane Irma that hit the U.S., and I'm also told that the dollar is not doing well. Dollar is at 4.4 now, or is it 4.45? We left it at 3.6. And so it has to do with the hurricane issue and our own management of our economy not being able to arrest. The vice president indicated that he had arrested the dollar and he had locked it up and given the key to the IGP. So I don't know why now the dollar is going up. He needs to come and explain. You remember when he was vice president, he gave 170 questions to the former vice president to answer. He needs to also answer these questions. But I thought that the government, when they were in opposition, indicated that they were going to take off some taxes on petroleum products. This is the time for them to do that and cushion Ghanaians. They said they were going to remove some taxes in the petroleum sector that will ensure that the prices fall. This is the time Ghanaians need that, so they should do it.
This is pure sarcasm from you.
Why sarcasm? We need to hold people accountable for the promises they make to the ordinary Ghanaian. That's all that we are doing.
But we have to be realistic. If the prices are supposed to be adjusted and they are automatic, it means the government really has no hand in how the prices tend to either fall.
I wish this argument that you are putting across was understood when we were also in power. It wasn't understood that way. But even in our case, you look at LPG gas. We now produce more LPG than we import because of the travel gas. So why should LPG gas be going up? Because it affects our environment. If we don't use the LPG gas, people will go back to cutting down trees and use charcoal. So for the LPG gas, where we are now producing more than importing, I thought that that shouldn't have been increasing. But every now and then, you have the LPG gas increasing. And I think that is not the best.
Fuel prices have become thorny issues, but at the end of the day, how do we leave the politics out of it?
It's for politicians to come to one conclusion that we have gone full cycle. The MPP has accused the NDC of not being able to arrest increases in fuel. The NDC has also accused the MPP. So it's for for the politicians to come to one conclusion that fuel politics should be out of our politics. What we should do is to look at the issue dispassionately. And so when there are increases, you shouldn't attribute it to the failure of one government. You notice that the vice president, when the NDC was in power, kept saying that the reasons why the fuel prices kept increasing was because of the management of the economy and our inability to arrest the dollar, and that is why the fuel prices are increasing. The same can be said today. Again, what people are saying, what the industry players are saying is that it's because of the fall in the cedi that has resulted in the increase in the fuel prices, as well as the Hurricane Irma, which happened in the U.S. So I think that it's for politicians to come full cycle. There were instances when Ghanaians were shown a gallon of petrol and indicated that when they come to power, they'll increase it, they will reduce it. When they came to power, they rather increase it by more than 100%. So we've gone full cycle as political parties. It's now time for us to be dispassionate about the matters relating to fuel. We are a net importer of petroleum products, fuel. We also produce fuel, but as a nation, the quantity we produce is not enough. We import some of our products as well. So it goes both ways. When the price increase in the international market, we also have the opportunity to get more revenue because we also sell fuel. But because we are a net importer, and because we are not one of those countries that produce so much, the impact is felt because we import more than we produce. So my point is, we've come full cycle. Let's take away politics in our fuel pricing and leave it to the industry players. If not, it will be cyclical. The MPP accused us, and we are also accusing them. Yeah.
Okay, but now you want to stop the accusation.
I am not saying that I want to stop. What I am saying is that it's important for us to then come to this conclusion. Are people listening? Come 2020, will some people say that they manage the economy better than others and that fuel prices are reducing during their time? Or another group will say that, look, when we were in power, we were able to ensure that. So let's wait and see what happens in 2020, or maybe when we get to the elections, 2019, thereabout. Whether because of what we are now seeing, when we have gone cyclical, whether we are now wiser not to engage in such kind of politics and allow the industry players to dictate the pace and discuss these matters.
What do you think? At the end of the day, we know that the prices tend to influence, that is the fuel prices at the pumps tend to influence how the GPRTU as a lead transport union or agency would regulate the pricing based on the agitations from its members. Should that be a concern for everybody?
The prices influence living conditions, not just fuel fares. It influences living conditions in the country. Already, I heard yesterday the concerned taxi drivers, they are a group of people. They have called on their members to increase prices. It calls for the government, that's the Ministry of Transport, to quickly sit down with operators of transport, the GPRTU, the Protour, and these concerned taxi drivers, to sit with them to come out with the prices quickly. I don't understand why the government, till now, is allowing these things to happen where fares are being increased and the government is not intervening to have a discussion with the transport owners. You cannot say that if the prices of fuel increase, the taxi driver should not increase his fares because the input for running the taxi is a fuel. So he must increase. But it appears government is not up to the beat. Government is simply not responding and trying to protect the Ghanaian consumer, that's the Ghanaian citizenry. It's time for the Minister for Transport to start the discussions with the transport owners, and that's the way to go, so that if they are going to even increase, it will be a reasonable increase and not astronomical.
But you fear there could be some increases?
Definitely there would, and there must be. If I were a taxi driver, if I were a trotro driver, or if I were a transporter, I would definitely increase. Because I go to the pump, I buy it higher than what I used to buy. Definitely I must pass the cost to the consumer, and the consumer is you and me. So government's lack of interest to sit with the GPRTU is what we should be talking about. I think that Ghana should put pressure on government to go to the negotiating table to sit with them and discuss. As for the taxi driver, as for the transporter has done nothing wrong. It's common sense. You don't need an economist to tell you that when you buy something at a certain price, you must break even. And breaking even means that you have to increase your wares. I will not blame them. I will blame government for not being proactive on this matter. Government is to be blamed.
Well, we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll be inviting into the discussion Dr. Okoboy. He's a member of Parliament for Lejokuku. Please do stay on. We'll be right back. And Dr. Bernard Okoboy is a member of Parliament for Lejokuku. He's here. He's a medical doctor by profession. Good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother.
Charlie, this is Hello Gbami.
Oh, Charlie. I'm very few.
Yeah, very well. But MPG, no. Okay, at the end of the day, we know that fuel prices have not been stable. I know MPs, usually you don't buy fuel. It's given to you as subsidized rates, or sometimes you go to GOIL, it's given for free. So you don't know the prices. Let me tell you what the real problems we ordinary consumers are facing.
I hear you.
The prices have been increasing. I don't know whether they're astronomical, but each week we tend to find that the prices are increasing. There are fears that we could have increase in transport fares. And Abraham is saying when we have increase in transport fares, it means that there's increase in cost of livelihood, because the ordinary biscuit that you used to buy, the price will have to change. The inputs or the food produce you used to buy, the price will have to change. What do you have to say about it?
Yeah, thank you very much. Roland, let me say a very good morning to my senior brother, Maliba, and also to all your viewers, especially to my brothers and sisters watching from Lejokuku constituency. I think, first of all, let me quickly address an assertion. The assertion that MPs use fuel coupons is fictitious.
It's not true.
Yes.
So I was being mischievous.
No. I don't know the intent.
No, I know that you don't use. I was just trying to be mischievous.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Because, our constituents are watching. Before next time somebody comes to me for gold coupons. No, I think as a country, we were sort of using executive influence to control prices of fuel over the years, where a government decides, despite prices on the world market, that for political reasons and in code for social protection, prices should remain the same, only to accrue debts through subsidies, which becomes then a burden on the economy, and then it throws our fiscal, practice out of gear. So as a country, we all came together under the leadership of our brothers then when we were in opposition, that we should deregulate fuel prices so that the factors that determine the prices would do so naturally without any intervention by government. When the prices go down on the world market, there's performance when it comes to stability of the CD, and then exchange rate, fluctuate. All those things should determine, and the factors are there. So over the years, under the turn of President Mills, we started learning that particular exercise, and Ghanaians were encouraged as much as possible not to see fuel prices as the doing of a government, but as a result of the factors. I agree that some of the factors can be determined by a government's performance, like stability of your currency. If a government is not prudent with financial management and is not disciplined fiscally, your CD would continue to fall, and that will affect fuel prices. I agree. But there are other components which are not handled by you. They are external factors. So the long and short is that the prices we are seeing is as a result of some changes in the world market. I don't want to go. You know what is happening in Texas, the flooding and all that. Some of these things have contributed. I'm also honest enough to admit that some marginal depreciation of the cedi over the few months have also had a factor. The cedi has performed largely well over the past 8 months, and that is why we've not had fluctuations. My brother Maliba is saying that, the taxi drivers are asking for changes. Roland, prior to the election in 2016, we had about 3-4 different price increases in fuel, but the GPRT did not sanction an increase in the price. Why? Because they have sat at the table with stakeholders and have agreed that when there's a price change, they must meet to determine whether the change is significant enough to warrant an increase. And so this is a practice that we've all taken on board over the years. When GPRT meets and decides that this price should warrant a change, we don't have a problem. But as we speak now, we should be honest enough to follow the system we've all agreed, which is that when changes in prices occur, it takes the mother union to determine whether it is significant enough to warrant a change.
I see.
Yeah.
I see this time you've been very low on your argument, so it means that at the end of the day, it's because
reality is dawning on.
No, you see, there's one thing that we should all learn in governance. When free SHS help parents to save money in their pocket, we made a lot of noise. If there is any increase in prices in fuel, which at the end of the day makes a citizen pay 2 Ghana cedis or 1 Ghana cedi more than they used to pay. It's a pinch. So you save money on one end, you have a pinch at some ends. Any government should be honest enough to admit that this one would weigh on the citizen.
So that's what you're doing.
Exactly. And this is what this government is going to do. We know that you cannot score 100% in all sectors.
So why did we make politics? Why do we make politics out of it?
No. I said we have a history as a country where each government tries to say
about even during the last election.
No, but it was the first time we had gone into the deregulation. So when I said it was the first time we were making the argument that government is now taking itself off pricing.
And your party was taking political advantage of it.
Our argument was that one of the factors has to do with stability of the cedi, the performance of the currency. And that government has a direct role through their fiscal policy and economic management.
And they were not doing well
in that aspect. So when they are arguing, they go and hide under the price on the world market and leave the cedi performance.
But you agree that we play politics with it?
Oh, we hammered on the place where it was relevant, which was that management of the economy was not that good. And that one, Amaliba knows, I'm being honest with that.
I see. So today, that same argument can be posited, that because the cedi is not also doing well, which has also impacted upon the price, Bawumia, the finance minister, and the senior minister who are in charge of that sector are also incompetent. Can we draw that conclusion?
There are a lot of factors you use. The same economic team has managed to finance the free SHS, which has made parents save an average of 1,000 Ghana cedis in going to school. When you save 1,000 from a policy and you lose 1 Ghana from the same economic management team, there's a net increase.
Don't go there, because there are students who have been posted from regions that
those are structural problems,
and then sent to other regions, and they are renting accommodation.
Those are structural problems.
That is also cost to parents. So you must know that too. So you don't just say that everything is good and that. But you see, when you were in opposition, if you forgot, let me remind you, you indicated that you were going to take off taxes from the petroleum sector. And when you look at the tax build-up in the it's 50%, that tax build-up alone. The price, when you combine the taxes,
was it realistic?
Wait, are you asking me? Ask him, let me finish and you ask him. 50%. So this is the time Ghanaians are yearning for you to take off that tax. And when we were in power, we dared them. I remember John Jinakwa daring them, if they are men and women who are capable of money, they should take off that tax. So this is the time that we want you to do that.
Roland, the 17.5% tax, which was taken off air tickets, has led to about 24% increase when it comes to travel by air within domestically. We took off the excise duty on petroleum. It had an impact. It's the level of significance that can be debated. But you know what? We've taken a lot of taxes off. We call them nuisance taxes. 70.5% on imported medicines, 5% on real estate, 70.5% on financial transactions. All these are taxes which are facts that we've taken off. The level of taxes on petroleum, the burden, we've reduced it. It is a level of significance that can be debated. But let me assure him that in managing the economy, there are taxes we wish we could take off. We've taken some off. There are many to go, but they will be done in a graduated manner so that overall performance of the economy can be, the shocks, we don't have, drastic changes. Exactly. So Amaliba can be assured that every tax, which is a nuisance tax, will be knocked off, just like their predecessors, those that we've done.
No, this is a time for that to happen. Just take off the tax and bring the
fuels down. A little patience.
And this real estate matter. I spoke to a real estate developer. He said, yes, they've taken off 5%. Yeah. But prices of materials have gone up. So it's square zero because they are buying materials at a higher cost now. So we can continue debating it, but the Ghanaian will be the best judge.
That's true.
Ghana sweet though.
Ghana sweet.
Ghana sweet. On the front page of the Daily Guide, we have a story that says Atuforsen paid for 30 trotro ambulances. And the Daily Guide is a tabloid, so we do understand how the headlines will be like. But we know JoyNews has been doing this for a number of time. They spoke to a Deputy Finance Minister, Atuforsen. He defended his role in in the purchase of the ambulances because he seemed to have approved of an LC, which of course would have been effected if they paid 50 or they brought in 50% of the goods as they were. But he had a great debate on Tuesday. So we would want to listen to that or watch that, and then we'll come back and do the discussions.
Contrary to some commentaries that I'm hearing, as if government of Ghana or the Ministry of Finance, or in this case myself, made a payment after the ambulances have arrived in Ghana. That is not the case. Ministry of Finance have never made a payment after the ambulances arrived in Ghana. It is also the case that we had the health minister. He said that there was no evidence of any payment to Big C, for that matter, as long as the ambulances are concerned. So nobody can say that payment has been made, obviously from Ministry of Finance in 2014, 2015, and even 2016, for the purposes of ambulance.
All right, so Mr. Forsing, are you then saying that these letters of credit, which are supposed to be irrevocable and it's stated in the contract, are you saying that these letters of credit were never advanced and never pursued?
What you should understand is that, as I said earlier, letters of credit has conditions attached to it. Okay, one including the shipping date, the time it should arrive, obviously the specification, the inspections, and all of that. We only gave approval on behalf of Ministry of Ministry of Health, for Ministry of Health to get the letter of credit in order for them to procure after the contract has been signed.
All right, Mr. Forsing, what can you say about these letters of credit? What happened to the letters of credit?
What I can say is that the Ministry of Health should come clean and tell the people of this country whether the letters of credit, after the Ministry of Finance asked the central bank to issue the letters of credit on their behalf, whether the letters of credit were issued, and after it was issued, whether they have made payment and they performed their obligation.
And Kesolato Forsen is a minority spokesperson on finance. He was a former deputy minister of finance too. And according to what the stories are, he issued the LC, or the letter of credit. And I have to start with you, Okoboy. And we know the health minister raised the issue when he went on a tour of a number of health facilities, but even went to the yard where we had these ambulances that were packed, and those pictures are behind now. That picture is behind us. A Mercedes-Benz type of ambulances, but apparently they had not been retrofitted to meet the specifications of being a health ambulance.
You know, because you mentioned ambulance, this health issue just brings into mind what is happening in the U.S. We have the First Lady, the UN Assembly that the President has embarked on. The First Lady talked about trying to establish a cancer center in Ghana with that intent. Very laudable one. It's my prayer that that comes into fruition. And then greetings to those who are on the trip, His Excellency the President and his team. We hope that they sell Ghana, bring some investors. We need to create more jobs. Roland, in Lejokuku, Teshi, where I am
a sitting member,
yes, of Parliament, I've been approached by the Lekma Hospital, which is a referral hospital in the community. I've talked to the municipal director. I've talked to most of the people heading the health facility. We have about 4 or 5 facilities. One big problem has to do with ambulance, modules for transport when people need to be referred to higher centers. So everywhere you go, they tell you, doctor, we need an ambulance. And when you look at maternal mortality in this country, a significant portion of the death is as a result of delay in reaching a referral facility or health facility. And that has a connection with what? Transport, ambulance. So as for ambulance, it is a very critical issue for this country in terms of addressing health problems. And so when the previous government tried to embark on this journey, it was a very laudable one. We have a huge deficit. But Roland, when you look at the deal, the transaction, it is not a good one. It's a bad deal. Where you bring in ambulances which the Ministry of Health themselves, Dr. Zakaria, the head of the ambulance service, said these were not fit to be used as ambulances. And my worry is that Dr. Zakaria said that over the past years, what they do is that there are 3 inspections minimum for getting an ambulance into this country. The first one is an inspection of the vehicles even before production, just to make sure that these are our specifications. This is how the length of the ambulance, this is the width of the ambulance, this is where the structure should be. And then during the production process too, they normally send people to go and inspect that it's being produced in accordance to specifications. And the third one is when the ambulance is finally ready, they come and see whether it is in conformity with their specifications. None of this took place. So somebody definitely went to sleep, either as a result of incompetence or connivance, one of them. Now, there are certain facts that are here. It is a fact that the Ministry of Health instructed the Ministry of Finance to issue letters of credit. This is a fact. Like Atufosin said, they issued at-site letters of credit. Let me go with that for now. It's also a fact that we had 30 of the ambulances which were way below standards. They were not fit to be used that time. Now, this is my worry. For now, you said something interesting off camera that we don't know for sure whether government actually made the money hit the accounts of the dealer, the one we were dealing with.
That's the percentages that we're talking about.
Exactly.
Because it's not as if it's the full money.
I think
speculating.
The accountant of government is the controller, CAG department, Controller Accountant General's department. They normally can tell you whether there are records to show that monies actually have left our accounts and hit all the foreign accounts or a company's account. I think the other institution that can also give you documents is the Bank of Ghana. Sometimes they make payments on behalf of the government, usually with instructions from, how do we call it?
This payment is supposed to be made by the Bank of Ghana, because I know many LCs are honored by the Bank.
Yes, but exactly. But the records, every transaction that the Bank of Ghana makes on our behalf, usually, I stand to be corrected, the records must be in the domain of the controller at the end of the day, so that they can tell us the expenditure picture and then the how do we call it, the income picture as well. Roland, I don't want to go into certain analysis that will indicate that I'm prejudiced or I have something against the extra government. Let's just work with these facts that the ambulances were below expectation, they did not fit the levels, that Ministry of Health gave the instructions. We need to query and investigate the documents. In fact, what surprised me a lot was that documents surrounding this transaction are at large, as in we cannot find. That's the information. I don't know whether yesterday night.
You mean in government custody?
Yeah.
They can't find those documents.
No. As in government is unable to, the Ministry of Health.
In its custody?
Yes, they
cannot find it in the archives of the Ministry of Health?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
there are 2 things involved. It is possible that they have it with them, but they cannot trace it. Or there were not documents, of course, once there's a transaction, there should be documents. But sometimes, it happens. Somebody knowing that maybe the deal is not that good, now that there's a controversy, can try to frustrate the process. But we must make sure that we lay hold, we lay hands on the documents, investigate the deal, and ensure that this country is able to retrieve whatever monies that it lost, if that was the case. I always say that nobody is guilty until proven otherwise. In other terms, innocent until proven guilty. That does not also mean that we cannot on the face determine whether a deal looks good or is bad. But the bottom line is that we must go to the bottom of this matter. I don't like the way sometimes we have a storm where there is an allegation or there is a talk of a wrongdoing or a bad deal, and then after some weeks or months, we don't know what is happening. We must go to the bottom of such matters so that if it's a bad deal, it is used as a lesson to prevent other bad deals from occurring. And if there are people who have made it at enterprise, Roland, it's not always politicians. Look, some of the people involved, you'll be surprised, might have been at the ministry for the past 20, 30 years. Politicians will come and go, and these guys rather sometimes can be having an empire. We must go to the bottom and make sure that anyone who had something to do with this is brought to book so that we can save monies. We need more money to finance SHS. We need more money to give financial clearance for over 15,000 workers. In fact, a lot have gone. We need more. We need more money also to make sure that our environment is protected. There are a lot of things we need money for, and we cannot allow people to bring in a trotro sprinter and use it as an ambulance. That cannot be accepted.
This year, and at the end of the day, we're told that once this was issued, it was based on certain criteria before payment would be made. What we haven't been told is whether payments had been made, but we know that eventually we're getting information that some payments may have been made to the contractor, and we're told it's Big C. If that is the case, the minister deputy who issued the letter of credit said this would only have to be honored if certain criteria were also met. Now, if the goods come and they don't have, or they were not fit for purpose, it means that they have to be brought to standard. And if that was satisfied, if they were satisfied with it, then it will be certified for disbursement. But if we're hearing that disbursement was made, it makes it a bit murky. And well, first we're told that the health minister was being speculative, and it looks like still there's some level of speculation out there, but it's because there's that level of uncertainty.
Well, let me honestly commend Dr. Oko for being non-political on this matter. I cannot but follow his path. Now, the former deputy minister has responded. Initially, the reportage was that he had approved payment, but his response clarified the whole issue. Letters of credit do not amount to approval of payment.
Not at all.
Exactly. And he went further to indicate that before you can even pay, the product, the goods that are supplied must meet certain specifications. So the question now is, did those checks that were supposed to be done, were they done to ensure that the ambulances meet the specification, the reason for which we wanted them into the country? Now, we all know that they were not, the ambulances did not meet the specification. The next question is, did the government of Ghana pay for those ambulances? I heard Alex Segafia indicate that no payments were made. But I'm hearing you say that probably some payments were made. I want to agree with him. I want to join issues with him and say that we have appropriate institutions in this country that we can go for this information. But in all this, I don't know why, as a country and as a government, and I'm not just talking about this government, hardly have I heard the government of Ghana suing, parties they've entered into a contract. It's rather when we've breached the law or when we breach our part of the obligation, then they will be suing us for judgment debt. This is a good case for the government of Ghana to sue this supplier, because you are supposed to supply to meet certain specifications. You have supplied, but you have not met the specification. So why would the government of Ghana fold its arms and behave like there's no avenue for them for a redress? I can tell you that if this were the supplier who was at such an advantage to sue us, they would have fired some right now. So he rightly indicated the ambulances are necessary for our health sector. So it's a good project. We are not, nobody is saying that it is wrong to bring in the ambulance, but the ambulances have not met the specification. So if they've not met the specification, if it were your private business, what would you have done? You would have sued the supplier. So I think that whether we have paid or we have not paid, but it depends. If we have not paid, we can ask them to come and take their goods back. But if we have paid, then it's a good case for instituting legal action against the supplier. This is a straightforward matter. But if whether we have paid or not, if we want to find out that, we can go to the books. But as a government, we must be seen being proactive and protecting the state. We shouldn't just be dormant and wait for contractors to be, instituting action against government. Government too has the power and the right, if it is wrong, to also institute legal action against them. So let the Minister of Finance, Health, because this is about health, come out clearly and indicate that, for me, my advice would be for them to sue the supplier for not meeting the standards that were set by the contract.
Mr. Koboy, one thing that was insightful, I hear the cabinet, and according to the report we have, the cabinet of the last government, led by John Dramani Mahama, made some conclusive commitment not to pay, because upon a report by the health minister at the time, the buses were not fit for use. Yeah. But it seems that somehow there's a suspicion that some of those payments would have been made. Yeah. That also establishes that perhaps government at the time also saw that something was untoward with the supplies that were made.
You see, patience is an important tool in governance. We must be patient enough to wait for details as to whether, I'm happy you mentioned the suspicion, but we cannot speak conclusively
just based on suspicions. Yeah.
So we should be finished with the information, whether really money was paid or not. Like he said, like Amaliba said, if money was not paid, fine, you have no commitments. We are not how do you call it, encumbered or forced to pay any money. If our monies have gone into a bad deal, we have to look at the specifications of the contract, and either you institute legal action or even look at bringing those who partook in the deal, both public officers, police, whoever, whether it's out of incompetence or, like I said, connivance or whatever. When you do the investigation, you can do something conclusive. Like I said, when we start a matter, we must go into the bottom of the matter. It is my prayer that this will not be one of those stories. We must, the documents should be there. Why? I don't understand why sometimes we behave as a country as if we are the mercy of people who once served us or who dealt with us. There must be paper trail. There should be paper trail. And you must enforce to get a paper trail. In the absence of paper trail, you assume there was none and punish people for having engaged in businesses without a paper trail. That cannot happen in your private business. So I wouldn't find anybody guilty. I wouldn't speak conclusively to appear prejudiced, but I want this money to retrieve, this country to retrieve any money that it lost. And I want value for money when it comes to transactions. That's what this government wants. The last time I told you that in engaging in public transactions, the Akufo-Addo government is interested in 3 items. 1, everyone we deal with must have the capacity and competence to execute the contract. 2, the fellow must obey the rules and laws of how do you call it, governing the public procurement, how do you call it, the act. And then the 3rd one, which is very, very important, we must ensure that there's value for money. Capacity, obeying the laws, and value for money. If this deal does not fit them, don't be surprised if this government starts to go after elements that are concerned.
Well, let's move on. Businessman Alfred Agbesi-Oyeme has made an appeal to government to protect his human rights hours after some military men apparently besieged his house here in Accra. And we know that it's said to be owing the government or the state some 51 million. We're told that he made some initial payment, so that fee would have reduced. I don't know whether the interests were also added. It's a situation presents President Akufo-Addo with an opportunity to live up to his much touted human rights credentials. What do you make of this with this story, Mr. Abraham Maliba? Just his house being stormed because he owes government at the end of the day. He feels that that's not the way to go.
I understand that the military men and policemen who were armed to the teeth were there to ensure that the house he was living in was valued for valuation purposes, with the intent to dispose of it because of the debt that he owes the state. I think that this matter is also before the Human Rights Court, I mean the African Human and People's Rights Court. The government have been served with those processes. The Constitution enjoins the state to recognize and respect international law, including protocols that we have signed. We are a member of that court. Don't forget that our current Chief Justice was the president of that court. So, and we have a lawyer who is also a president who is a lawyer. So I thought that government would have stayed its hands and allow for the final determination of the matter at the African Human and People's Rights Court. But it turned out that, according to the military men and soldiers who were the policemen who were there, they were there based on a court order, which gave them the right to go and evaluate the house, value the house. My difficulty has to do with, one, the courts are on recess. The courts are on vacation. So which courts granted this order for the valuation? Unless I'm told that the application was filed before a vacation judge. If they say so, then I won't ask that question. But if the court is on recess, how did they get that order? That's one. I want an answer to that. Two, why would they go to Wayomi's house and in that manner and fashion, knowing very well this is a man who has availed himself to all processes in the court. He has not posed a danger to anybody. He has not resisted any processes that were filed on him. I am told that when they got to the house and the wife of Wayomi attempted taking pictures of what was happening, they pointed a gun at the woman. The woman who was not armed, you point a gun at her. The trauma. Probably the children were there. That is where I agree with Wayomi for calling for the protection of his human rights. Prisoners have rights. People think that when you are in prison, you have no right. So even if prisoners have rights, how much more a free person like Wayomi? So it is wrong for the state to have sent the military men armed to the teeth and to go and harass the wife of Wayomi in the house. I'm speaking this way because I am a politician. Tomorrow, it may happen to me. So if it is happening to somebody and somebody is sitting somewhere gloating, he shouldn't forget that it may happen to him too. We are not saying that Wayomi shouldn't pay the money, but in dealing with him, his rights must not be abused. He must be treated with the courtesy that he deserves. Don't forget also that Wayomi he's not a common criminal. He did not go to the Bank of Ghana using hammers, axle, broke into the vault of the Bank of Ghana and took money away for you to treat him as if he's a common criminal. Yes, you can pursue processes that will lead to him paying the monies, but for God's sake, don't violate and abuse his human rights. That's the point I'm making.
And we know that MFR Power had an interaction with him, so would want to have this interaction, and then we'll come back and have Dr. Okoboy have his reactions on the subject.
I think about some few days ago, you all heard that armed police officers with bulletproof jackets and armed police officers with bulletproof jackets and assault rifles and helmets came to my house here at an unholy hour of 4 a.m., banging at the doors and trying to enter forcefully. I asked them what documents do they have to come over here. A gentleman among them said he was from the Supreme Court. And I asked, let me see the Supreme Court document. He didn't have it. I said, okay, then they are here illegally. I also took my time to tell them that they should go and tell Godfrey Dami that there is an interpreter by the UT Bank on this property and any other property that have been there. And this happened long time before the UT owned, we used it to collect loan from UT long time before the judgment of the Supreme Court.
But the last time they were here, Mr. Woyome, we're running out of time. The last time they were here, you wrote to the IGP, the Attorney General, raising concerns about the way your home was raided. Have you heard anything from them?
What I heard from them is this.
What happened today? What then are you going to do about this? What happened today?
You see, I will still have to meet with my lawyers and other things, and then we'll find a way how to go about it. If the executive were doing it alone, that is something. But getting the judiciary also getting involved raises serious human rights issues, raises serious doubt about the freedom of the Ghanaian under this very regime. It is a very, very serious issue. Today is Alfred Woyome. Tomorrow will be somebody else. If you continue to just agree, Alfred Woyome has not refused and will not refuse to obey the order, whether to his disadvantage, illegally or not, which has become supreme of this country. Alfred Woyome would do that. But if the constitutions and my rights still give me right to seek justice, until all those avenues are exhausted, I don't think anybody has a right. President Nana Addo did not come to rule this country by coup d'etat. He was voted for under the same constitution. He should ensure that as the executive president of this country, everybody feels safe and the constitution is protected. He should rein in his people. He should rein in his people. And what he has told the whole nation and people have publicized about it as a human rights activity, this is a test case. This is a test case. Respect the things of the African court. Respect it now. We will do certain things with the court as the time comes. But respect it now so that something that you were not involved in should not become an albatross on your own neck.
Alfred Agbesi Woyome. And Bernard, Dr. Kobo, your reactions?
Yeah, first of all, let me say that the president of this country, His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, is true. Like Amaliba said, he's a lawyer, a very, very, celebrated lawyer. He's not the one that engages in political persecution, but prosecution, political prosecution, to prosecute public officials or politicians, if it's necessary to retrieve money for the state.
With the armed soldiers?
No, I'm coming. I'm just making a foundation. It's allowed and even should be commended. It's true, use of force, if it's excessive, cannot also be commended. Now, what I want to say is that some facts must be laid clear here. The Supreme Court on 24th of July, subsequent to his ruling that Woyome should pay back 51.2 million to the state, that it was unjustifiably paid, on 24th of July, actually gave an order that some of his assets, his assets they should try and locate them, value them, so that as a way of paying back the money, they can, either they sell or bring those things to the state. Now, if you look at the confessions in court, 24th July, Woyome's lawyers indicated clearly that since 2011, he had not been engaged in any work. These were his statements. So he's not actually got money to pay. So the only place you can actually start looking at are assets. And he mentioned in court that he has two houses. One is for his brother, one is for himself. Now, what happened, according to the reportage, were officials of the court going into Woyome's house to do the evaluation, the assessment, so that they can give figures to the court. The presence of soldiers and policemen, like they do anytime they have to enforce a court ruling, but suspect there might be resistance, they try to protect the court officers. Amaliba said it is even reported that they pointed a gun. All these are allegations or maybe speculations. We have not conclusively ascertained them. If it's ascertained that this is what happened, that is unfortunate. To point a gun at someone in the house once they don't have the capacity to resist that level. So these are speculations. We have to look into them. But the bottom line is that anybody who tries to frustrate the court in trying to do their work is also impeding justice.
Do you claim that Woyome is trying to... Is that why you made the statement?
I said anybody who tries to do that.
And are you implying that Woyome is frustrating the court in doing its work?
No, I'm not saying so. It is because we have a history of people trying to resist public officers, law officers. It's a history we have, we can cite many. That's why sometimes the court officers request some of this protection. And let me say something.
They go with the whole battalion to people's
That's
houses.
why I said excessive show of force is necessary. It must be measured. You see, I agree it must be measured. I don't know the numbers that went there, but you don't go with 30 soldiers armed with police officers to one house. Our soldiers are professionals. If you are going to one house, based on the intelligence you gather, how many? If you have intelligence that Woyome is coming with all his relatives and all well wishers and everything to come and resist, maybe you might need more than 2-3 soldiers. I get what I'm saying. So it's the intelligence that determines the number of soldiers you take. But I don't have all that those information. But what I want to say is that excessive show of force usually does not go inure to the benefit of any government. But at the same time, we must make sure we protect the law officers to do what the court has asked to be done, to value the property and make sure that we retrieve those monies. Let me add this, which is very important. Just recently, a minister of state, Mr. Makwata, lawyer Makwata, and let me also use, the last time we raised issues about roads in Teshi, the Teshi link. Let me take the opportunity to thank him and Honorable Kabo. I was there, they've looked at the contract, they've met the Chinese contractors, and they are trying to find a way of making sure the road is done. So let me take the opportunity, if anybody is watching, you should tell Mr. Makwata that myself and Roland, after the engagement on the Teshi link, we are grateful. But it is our hope that the contractors will finally go to site. Mr. Makwata tried to engage a particular businessman on the Spinters Road. You heard of that? About the construction happening over there. They have some tools on site. The guy went to the level of resisting them and nearly even applying force on the minister in the presence of the police. What am I trying to say? The level of impunity in this country and stubbornness sometimes can be shocking. So when I find court officers going into a private man's house,
you are not surprised,
and they go with protection,
you are not surprised.
It is not surprising.
But Mr. Woyome is somebody who is known to the court.
My brother, like I said,
he's a public figure.
Mr. Makwata is a minister of state and a gentleman in this country. I use gentleman advisedly, had the audacity in the presence of policemen to apply force.
So you are saying in effect?
So stubbornness and impunity, they exist in this country. And in trying to make sure
that is why we took a whole troop or battalion to
I said excessive show of force is also unnecessary. I don't know the intelligence they had, but there are two things involved. Don't intimidate unnecessarily, but at the same time, do your work and get the state to function. That is important.
Mr. Amaliba, if at the end of the day, Mr. Woyome is not able to get the rest of the money to pay, what happens? What happens to him?
Well, they would attach his properties, and they will first. Normally, the law says that you attach both movable and immovable properties. So, but if that is not enough to pay off the debt, there's nothing you can do. In the past, the law was that you could be put behind bars, but the Supreme Court has ruled that you cannot imprison somebody for his inability to pay his just debts.
Okay.
Because poverty is not. It is not, nobody opts to be poor. So it is not like you saw riches and you say, I don't want, and I want to be poor. It is not an option that somebody takes. So you cannot imprison that person for being poor and not being able to pay. So the matter will end there. The matter will end there. And so the state can only go in for his properties. He has indicated that one of the properties is a subject matter of a loan he took from UT Bank, which means that UT Bank has an interest in that property.
Which one? Where they went to?
Well, he said there was one of them.
Okay.
So the government cannot proceed to sell because UT Bank will file what is called an interpleader when you have an interest in the property.
You mean now Ghana Commercial Bank?
Now Ghana Commercial Bank. So it's a bit murky, but I think that once the matter also is in the court, African Court on Human and People's Rights,
yes,
I think that the government should stay his hands, because the fact that our Chief Justice was once the president of that court would mean that he's undermining the same court that he worked with.
The former Chief Justice.
This Chief Justice, he was with them, indeed. So
her ladyship,
Sophia Akufo.
Oh.
And so if this continues and the court out there hears about it, it will be as if he's come back home and he's undermining the same court that he worked with. And I think that what can be done is for them to wait for the determination of the matter at the court, and then they can proceed.
Very well. My time is up. No, my time is up. My time is up. But I have 5 minutes. I wanted us 2.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes. So 8:20. Now let's do this. 3 minutes for you. 3 minutes for you. The Sedun Ketia, you know, the General Secretary of the party, says that NDC will resist any attempt by Akufo-Addo to change Ghana's history, and we know it's related to the Founders' Day, and the name now tomorrow will be that will be marked on Thursday as Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day, etc. 3 minutes for you, and then
the president is turning out to be the most divisive president that Ghana would ever have.
Oh, he's introduced free SHS. How can that be divisive?
I think that this is a matter, you know, when you introduce it or when you begin to talk about it, it raises emotions. This is a matter which, in my view, should be left to sleep. What is this change that you are proposing going to do? It will not bring food on people's tables. You said you were in a hurry. If you are in a hurry, are these some of the things you have to do? About changing the dates of the Founders' Day to something else, and then now proposing your own Founders' Day? See, it is an attempt by the MPP to try to prop up Nana Akufo-Addo's father and J.B. Dankwa. I think that the matter is settled. There is no amount of any political gymnastics that would ever turn Ghana's history upside down. That the founder of Ghana is Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Now, look at the two people, the other five UGCC personalities. These were people who were against Nkrumah's forward march of having independence now. They said independence in the shortest possible time. Indeed, do you know that they sent emissaries to the UK to tell them not to give us independence? And now the man has fought together with Ghanaian farmers, market women, and has gained independence. Then the son of one of them is today trying to say that he is going to rewrite history and bring on board his father and the grandfather. That is, I even see this is not even an MPP agenda. It's a personal agenda by the president. And I think that everybody should condemn it. He's trying to divide this country, and as a president, what you do is to bring everybody together and not to divide the country. I think it's a personal agenda he's embarking, and that is wrong.
3 minutes, sir.
Roland, the one who claims he wants independence now, and the one who professes to want independence in the nearest future, both of them have one unique identity. They both want self-rule. They're in the same boat. Let me say that this president has demonstrated that he's one of the most magnanimous fellows in this country. The former president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, by an executive action, I stand to be corrected, whether it's former or President Mills, but the president who made 21st of September,
President
Mills, did so by an executive instrument. What it means is that there are other avenues to make sure a day becomes a holiday. It could have been an LI, it could have been a bill brought to Parliament. Now, when you use the LI or a bill presented to Parliament, what you do is that you get the input of representatives from across the country, so that they determine whether a day is fit to be put aside for one gentleman.
Your party is the majority in Parliament.
It does not matter. I'm just making the point that the president could have taken it to Ghanaians to determine, but he used an executive instrument. I'm coming. I will not challenge him. That was legal. But the problem with that is that another president, by an executive instrument, can undo what he did. President Akufo-Addo could have used an executive instrument to throw 21st September off the books. But what did he do? He celebrates this man as a hero. But it is also true there are a lot of heroes that helped us to come this far. Forgive me for going this way, but I like it, makes it clear. Christ is a prophet. Christ, he's the last prophet. We celebrate him as a Christian. But he quotes Elijah most of the time. He quotes, one of his favorites is what? Isaiah. What does he tell you?
What you are doing,
please, I'm coming. Please, I'm coming.
You are denying him.
Please, I
so
kept quiet.
Can Christians deny
a lot of
Jesus Christ?
A lot of respect for you. Christ quotes those who came before him. Because he said John the Baptist came to prepare the way. Let me tell you something. President Akufo-Addo
but across the world, it is Christ.
It's Christ.
Who is a symbol of Christianity.
I know. But when you raise...
This argument is self-defeating.
Listen, you are not patient. Please, you are not patient.
My time is up.
Please.
I don't have the patience for it. The time is not giving me patience.
Roland, let me land.
Dr. Bernard Okoboy, Member of Parliament for Lejokuku. And then also Abraham Amaliba. No, you have lost the debate. It's okay.
Roland, please, I beg you.
Abraham Amaliba is a legal practitioner. Oh, Bernard. One cup break. Please. 21st is still celebrated as Nkrumah's Day. That means we've given him his place. And then the 4th of August, my producer will cut me.
Is for all the founders. So please, this is the president.
My producer, do you give me 2 more minutes?
And the others. It's not a personal agenda.
Okay, it's okay. But don't you think the president himself... Don't you think the president himself, even trying to sustain the day, 21st September,
it's an admission of his honesty.
Let him finish.
Also acknowledges that then Nkrumah was integral to the independence.
We've always said so, but it does not defeat. So it does not defeat the other argument.
Dr. Bernard Okoboy is a member of Parliament for Lejokuku, and Abraham Amaliba is a legal practitioner.